You're listening to the Karmic Mirror podcast, where we explore the wisdom tucked within the layers of the self-help world.
Together, we bridge the gap between esoteric teachings and practical tools for everyday life, with self-love and personal growth at the heart of each conversation.
Whether you're a seasoned seeker or just beginning your path, join us and uncover the magic within and around you.
Hello, Karmic Mirror listeners. Welcome to our episode of Permission to Be Yourself, an introduction, finally, to human design. We have been talking a lot about human design in our episodes, whether it's I'm a 3-5, I'm a generator, Michelle's man gen. Welcome to our introduction to human design. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, everyone.
So, what is human design? What does this system do for the collective? How do we use it when we're thinking about self-love, self-healing, self-growth, and really just standing in our authenticness, right? So this system was introduced to me, shocker, shocker, by Michelle when we were in our life coach certification program. And that's where I really was introduced and started diving deep into it. So high level, what is human design? Michelle, if I were to ask you, what is human design? How would you share with our audience your interpretation and understanding of human design?
You know, it's like the title of this episode, Permission to Be Yourself. That's exactly how I describe this system, but it's much more intricate than that. But at its core, every layer of human design just continues to give you that permission and validation that exactly who you are at your purest, most true, authentic self is exactly who you need to be, besides or before and outside of all of the conditioning and the ways in which we are told we should be, live, act in the world. And, you know, of course, the human design itself is a system. It's a holistic system that blends elements of astrology, which you'll see when we talk about your chart, the Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system, and quantum physics to create a personalized energy blueprint. And it goes deeper than that. There's another aspect to it. There's so many layers to it, but that's a real basic overview of what human design is. And it's a system that is here to show us how we are best designed to make decisions, be in partnership, in relationships, to work with people, to interact with the world, and so much more. Yeah, there's over 2 billion configurations, which we were talking about before we started recording. And what we mean by 2 billion configurations, we mean that there are just so many different ways that make you so uniquely you. So while we may have some overlapping layers, for example, Ali and I, which we're not going to get into profiles, but we both have 5 lines in our profile. And, but that means, we have this similarity in our charts, but there are so many other layers to each of us that make us both so, so unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really the best way my brain wraps around the understanding is that it's really part science, part spiritual system that tells you who you came here to be. At the exact second of your birth, the time and place, there were neutrinos running through your body. Neutrinos are small energy particles, explained to me almost if a star sneezed. That's how small that energy is going through you. And that really spits out, for, lack of better words, an instruction manual for how you're able to move through this world. And it's really custom to you. It is a relatively, I think in the scheme of systems in life, it's relatively new because it was just channeled through Rahu and 37 years ago. I heard on a podcast this morning with Jenna Zoe, and really it was channeled. He had this experience, and the transmission of that information that was 8 days and nights is what is today known as human design. And my experience of human design. And when I pull up people's charts, which I often do, strangers, people waiting in line for coffee, friends, family, I think that why this system really resonated with me so much out of the gate. And I believe with others is because there's always a sentiment after people read their charts or elements of their chart of, oh my gosh, I feel so seen. This is exactly me. This makes so much sense. And that is really high level to me what human design is.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating to me because Ra Uruhu, who, like you mentioned, is the founder, or, I say founder, but really he introduced human design through that transmission that he received. And it seems like really, really mystical and mysterious. And at the same time, like you said, the second you start to talk about human design with people, it starts to click because we're like, oh, yes, I know that about myself.
I do that. Or,
That's exactly
yeah,
it.
that makes
Yeah.
sense, especially people who are into astrology. And we know there's that overlay, but you and I talk a lot. We start to see similarities in our human design and our natal charts as well. So
Mhm.
to me, it's that can't just be such coincidence if it feels true that all of those things intersect and make sense.
Yeah. And because it's so uniquely tied with or intricately tied with astrology, there are going to be deeper layers. But again, like this is not a system that's here to put limitations on who you are or on anything about you. It's actually meant to give you that autonomy to just be exactly who you came here to be. And like astrology, it's that screen, it's a snapshot, right? Like that moment in time, the second you took your first breath. And so we are at our most authentic, most pure, because that's where our souls came here to be. And as we grow, through the world, we learn different ways of being. We pick up from the people, from caretakers, from the world around us, and we start to believe in all of the shoulds that we should be doing, should be being, all of it. And so this system really gives you the tools and like we said, the permission. I have never heard a word more with any system than human design than permission to be yourself. And that's exactly what it is. And every experience I've had with human design, whether it's a reading, whether it's a workshop that I've taken, or just like listening to people on
Working with your
podcasts
podcast co-host.
with my podcast co-host, the number one message I always hear from human design experts is take what resonates and leave the rest because there are so many layers like astrology, like all of these incredible teachings. It's really easy to get, super heady, get super intellectual about it and not actually put it into practice. And so I think that's an important thing to consider because you could spend years doing this. But my first reading I had with P the Fairy, who you can find her on Instagram, P the Fairy. I don't think she does human design readings anymore. This was a few years back, but she is an energetic strategist for creatives. She's an artist. And, I couldn't even begin to put P into any type of box because since that reading with her, she is just like continues to blow my mind with all the different ways that she puts her work out into the world and supports people who are in creative industries. So, anyways, that was my first interaction really with human design. I probably came across human design through the To Be Magnetic podcast. No surprise there. I mean, what hasn't Lacey Phillips and To Be Magnetic put me onto, or both of us? But that's where I had my first experience, and it was really cool. She did a really short reading for me, and everything that he was saying during our reading. I mean, sometimes I still refer back to it, and this was years ago, and she sent me the Zoom from it right after our reading, and it all felt very intuitive. It all felt very natural, and it all, it's funny when you learn about your human design. So much of it is going to feel like, oh, intuitively, I knew that about myself, and yet I was not allowing myself to live that way. And so I think that's a common theme is like, oh, I had a lot of shame or negative stories around being this way, but somehow intuitively I knew that's exactly how I wanted. And I truly, truly desired to live out my life and express
Yeah.
myself.
Well, without jumping too far ahead, what I think about with that is, I've been doing the quote unquote work for 9, 10 years. And part of that was like not saying yes to everything because
Hmm.
I would say yes. I would show up for everything, for every invite, for anytime friends, coworkers, people ask me for help. I was showing up for everything because that's what makes you a good friend, a good colleague, a good partner. And what really resonated with me when I learned about human design, I mean, I was doing that work before of like, hey, say no, like protect your energy. And then when it
Hmm.
came full circle with energy types and learning more about generators, I mean, that is something innately in me. Like if it's a hell yes, you say yes. If it's not, then that's not where you're meaning to give your energy. And so this system really resonated because it was already things that were on my radar. It just put language and understanding to it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the one thing I will say about human design is it's less about the what you are doing and it's all about the how. As you'll see, we're going to talk about some core kind of foundational aspects of human design. And it truly is, it's how we are doing life, how we are expressing ourselves, and not necessarily about the what, if that makes any sense. But I think it will as we continue talking. So
Yeah.
today, to get into today's episode, human design, like I said, it has infinite layers of learning. You can spend your entire life and that's the beauty of it, right? We don't reach this end point and we've got it all figured out. The beauty is that we get to spend as much time as we want learning about ourselves and learning how we truly want to continue living this life and embodying that. And so for today, we're going to talk about three foundational aspects: energy types, your inner authority, and your strategy. And so, before we get into it, energy types, this is how you are best meant to express your energy in the world. Your inner authority is all about how you are best designed to make decisions. And your strategy is all about how you create opportunities. And in modern language, we might even say how you manifest.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has a lot to do with your strategy. So
And why did we pick those three today? I think it's important to kind of highlight the reason why we are focusing on these three, because, like Michelle said earlier, I mean, the intricacies of a human design chart are endless. There's so
Mhm.
much in there. However, really focusing on your energy type, your strategy, and your authority are places that, and keep me honest here, Michelle, that a lot of human design, quote unquote, subject matter experts would say are good places to start, right? To dive into your human design.
Yeah, well, like I said, they're foundational aspects, right?
Hmm.
So if you cannot um, learn to embody and put into practice what it means to live your design through your energy type, through your inner authority, through your strategy, then the rest are going to be kind of confusing. They're going to be a little bit too, I think, complex. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I think that when you can really get comfortable, get confident in these aspects of your design, the rest do start to fall into place
Yeah.
because it starts to click. And so it's really, really important to focus on these first. It's almost like in astrology, your sun, moon, and rising, right? If you know about your sun, you know where you shine in the world and your personality and the style in which you shine. And if you know about your body and your emotions through your moon sign and you know where you're headed, your motivation for life through your rising, then the rest of your chart starts to click into place. And
Hmm.
so it's similar to these. So before we get into those, if this is your first introduction to human design, well, thank you for letting it be at Karmic Mirror. That's freaking
Yeah.
awesome.
So cool.
And if it's not, maybe you're going to hear things that you already know that's going to further validate. I could learn about these three foundational aspects 1,000 times and pick up something new each time. And so you may want to grab your chart if you don't already have it, if you don't know it. You will need your exact location, time, and date of your birth. And you can go to any human design calculator. You can Google human design calculator and you'll find it. But I really love Jenna Zoe at myhumandesign.com. I think that, Jenna Zoe does use more modern language to describe human design, different than what Ra Uruhu put out. but I find it to be really, really easy to understand. I think she breaks it down so beautifully. So you can go there, you can go to Erin Claire Jones, but definitely if you don't have your design, pause now, go get your chart so that you can follow along as we talk about these three aspects.
Mhm. And Jenna Zoe just recently posted on her Instagram story insight into if you don't have what to do when you're pulling your human design chart, if you don't have your time of birth or you don't
Mm.
know where you were born, for those adopted or, nuance to not have those things. I, again, would encourage you to go follow Jenna Zoe and look at some of her tidbits. But yeah, certainly go pull your chart so that you can follow along and get some insights to see where you land. I think the other cool thing that I want to talk about with just the intro to human design is there was a piece when Ra was channeling human design that highlighted this is for our children. And I think that that's really, really beautiful. So I think if there's any parents on the podcast right now listening, you might pull your children as well, and you might start to see them with a little bit new lens or light if you connect with that as well. So just a little plug there of something that could also be a cool way for parents out there to incorporate human design into their worlds.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and also with kids, it's like they're just going to be so authentically themselves. And it's a really cool thing to observe that in that state before, all of the programming, all of the conditioning. And
Mhm.
so throughout the episode, I definitely recommend, not only having your chart, but just maybe considering how, what's resonating with you. How do you already express some of this in your everyday life? Because it's just going to start to connect the dots in a really beautiful way to see, like, how am I already living very authentically? And if not, what does that look like for me? And just pay attention. So let's get into it.
Yeah. And then a beautiful question that we had discussed prior to recording is just starting to think about, and I think in shorter terms is like how do you align with your authentic self energy in your everyday life? So just start thinking about some of the areas we're talking about and how those may resonate with your everyday life and nuances. Let's open on energy types. So there's 5 energy types. We have generators, manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. The interesting thing about the energy types is that there was 4 at some point, and
Mhm.
then so it was just generators, manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. And then at some point, I don't know who,
Yeah.
but they determined that there actually was this 5th energy type, which is where Michelle falls as well, which is a manifesting generator. So energy types are important. Why, Michelle? Why do we care about energy types?
Well, it's how you interact with the world, as I said. So it's like, this is a super important distinction to understand your energy type because you may overlap. We may have some, you and a friend, you may have the same energy type, and this is going to be that first layer, but there's nuance within them. And like you said, yeah, the manifesting generators, which is what my energy type is a newer. It's a blend between manifestors and generators, but there's some nuance there as well. So your energy type describes how you naturally operate, how you interact with the world, how you generate and use your energy. So we don't all have the same style or type of energy. We don't express it all the same way. So we'll start with generators and manifesting generators because there are some overlappers. But both of these types, which Ali is a generator, I'm a manifesting generator, these are the doers, the builders, the creators. And we have this sort of we have this vitality, this life force energy. We're like the people that just have tons of energy, or in an ideal scenario, right? You would have a ton of energy. And the way that we sustain our energy is through excitement. And the term that a lot of human design experts will use is being lit up. So, are we super
Mhm.
excited and passionate about something? And that's what's giving us that energy. So, for generators and manifesting generators, we would be, this is one of the first things I learned about human design is that in an ideal setting, we would be using all of our energy in super satisfying ways every day.
Mhm.
Like we would just be pouring our energy into things that light us up, that make us feel excited. And then we would crash at night, recharge, and then wake up and do it all again. So like, we're here to, when we say builders, the doers, the creators, it's because we're here to just like put that energy into the world, to have a full tank of energy, to use it in very satisfying ways.
And actually, it's the purpose of generators' energy is to raise the energy of the collective. And
Yeah.
they do that by leaning into those areas that Michelle are saying really, really light them up.
Absolutely. And so, something to pay attention to is that if you are a generator or a manifesting generator and you are feeling restless, you don't resonate with this energy, then that can also mean that maybe you're not using your full energy in those aligned, satisfying ways. And so, it's a super, super important thing for generators, for manifesting generators to be taking inventory. Where do I feel lit up? Where do I feel drained? Because of course, we're not always going to be like, oh, this is draining me, my job, my 9 to 5, or whatever. I'm just using that example. But, it's not easy to say, like, well, I'm just going to quit my job tomorrow and
Mhm. Yeah.
go do all the things that satisfy me. But the more you take inventory, the more you can understand, can I put some more energy into the things that are lighting me up, even just a little bit more? Can I take a tiny bit more energy from the things that are super draining me? So back to generators, specifically generators like Allie
Yeah.
are all about mastery and depth. And I'll let you talk more because you're the generator here, but I do think it's important to mention that because that's so crucial to generators. It's about being all about mastery, going deep into something and not rushing to the end game, but going deep and just taking your time. What else?
Yeah, well, I automatically go to programming and how it's
Mhm.
how society has not let my energy flow in that. Well, let's not blame society. Programming, conditioning, maybe I see how choices and environments I have put myself in, right? Let's not blame society for everything. There's just a vast difference between when I'm lit up and not lit up about
Yeah.
things. And it's interesting to think through. And we had talked about in the VCon episode, that big conference that I went to. I mean, I was getting like literally 0 hours of sleep and I was going to bed with like butterflies in my stomach and waking up with
Yeah.
butterflies in my stomach. And for me, it's like, it's a, hey, don't go try and put on your own conference. It's not about that, but it's about evaluating like what pieces of that. And, it was the content, it was the community, it was so many things. But as a generator, I get to say, oh, that lit me up. I should be doing more of those types of things. And then like really when your energy is dragging, I mean, put me in meetings all day long with no purpose in them and like meetings that could be emails and I'm just dead by like 9:30. And I think the other thing about human design that I really like to visualize is it is kind of like a puzzle piece. It's this big puzzle of people. And when we're all using our gifts and our strengths, and in this case, our energy as it's supposed to be used, society, community, households run with more ease and in more flow because we are all leaning into our design. So it's kind of that piece of we know we're all different, but society tells us there's one way to do things. And so on the flip side, with that energy, so this would be for man gens and generators, people can ask you to do a lot of things. They want to utilize your energy in a lot of different areas. And it's our job as generators to really discern between what lights us up and what doesn't. And what lights us up, that is the intention, and that is not an accident.
Mhm.
What lights us up. So it can seem weird, maybe, where it's like, I don't know, I just love crocheting. I just,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so you look at like generators who maybe like love crocheting. There's a girl on Big Brother right now who has built a business on crocheting hats, wardrobes, and she's mastered that. I don't know if she's a generator, but again, that's how the energy shows up for me is like, what are the things that really light me up? And that's what I should things, people, environment, circumstances. That's where my energy should be leaning into.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your point about the puzzle piece, I think that, tying it back to even just the newer energy type of the manifesting generators is if we are as, the collective awakens to this understanding and starts to live a little bit more authentically, that lives according to their design, whether they know it or not, right? My husband Keith has been living in alignment in so many ways, and he has no idea about human design until I start. And
Effortless, just
yeah, it just
effortless. He's in his design.
right.
It's infuriating sometimes.
It's inspiring.
It's inspiring is the better word.
And so the more that we start to live our design, right, we move evolution forward, we move the collective forward, and we see that there are more uniqueness. There's more ways that we are even more unique. We get more energy types like manifesting generators. So speaking to manifesting generators, that's my energy type, me. And there are what I think you had put in our notes, like the number, the population, the percentage of people. So what generators make up what?
Generators about 36%, manifesting generators 32%,
Okay, perfect.
projectors 22, manifestors 9, reflectors 1. I've also heard theories that as a collective, as we continue to evolve, we will start seeing more manifestors, more reflectors, less, we will
Yeah.
need less of the generators. And I think the other thing, nothing is good or bad
Yeah.
or worthy or should be doing XYZ in this. That's it, Michelle, you've done a beautiful job of really highlighting that. It's a blueprint, but it is not like a step by step in every case. Do this and then
Yeah.
your life will be perfect, I guess.
Right, right. And so to that point too of, evolving to see more manifestors, to see more reflectors in the future, that tells us as this, like I said, evolution, the collective is moving forward, the world needs different things. So whereas perhaps where we are now, if there are, over 30% of the population are generators and then, another 30-ish, 32% are manifesting generators, we're here to do, to build, to create. And in the future, we may need more of other energies, which is such a cool thing to consider. So, manifesting generators, we are a combination of manifestors. So, that very, which we haven't talked about yet, but it's that initiating energy, getting things started. Mixed with that generator energy of being that life force, having vitality. So, we are the multi passionate people that are here to do many things. And we're here to have our energy in different things. And when the energy is no longer there, to pivot. And I'll speak, to this is, and I really resonated with this. And I think, it's a common language for manifesting generators because a lot of man gens can probably resonate with this feeling of or conditioning of, oh, I'm doing too much. I'm all over the place. Or, I can't follow through on something because I got bored
You never
easily.
finish anything. You've got your hands in all the
Yeah.
pots. You're not focused on one
But
thing.
the reality is that we actually need that level of stimulation. So we need to feel energized and lit up by having our hand in all of these different things because we need to be stimulated. And I was talking to my husband Keith about this recently about just the classroom setting, how, I won't get on this soapbox, but I certainly could, is, education, it really doesn't cater
Yeah.
to all of the different ways that that people learn.
And
And,
thrive.
taking it back to human design, it's like, I was so bored in classrooms so often,
Mhm.
sitting in a room, looking at a wall, or just trying to memorize things and getting bored. I wasn't stimulated. And so what would I do? I'd go look for trouble or I'd go look for things outside of the classroom because it just wasn't set up to support what I needed in that time and space. And so it's really cool to think about real life experiences. So one of the big challenges for man gens is really sticking with things uh, for too long and not pivoting. And that's something that I think a lot of people can resonate with. I stayed in one industry for so long because I thought it's what I should do, because I thought that, in order to validate or show success professionally, I needed to move up some sort of ladder. I needed to have a title. I needed to have a certain salary, and I needed to stick with, I mean, I hired people for years for different companies, and we always were conditioned to think when you look at a resume, we were looking, this is old school, but we were looking at longevity. That
Hmm.
was a big word. Oh, they stuck with this job forever. But what we know now is that's not the real case for everyone. And actually, that could have been hiring someone who didn't understand themselves enough to walk away when it was done for them and when the energy wasn't there. So just want to like mention that because it's so important to for manifesting generators to let yourself keep moving, keep
Hmm.
trying on different things, and let that be part of your process. And, where the manifester initiating energy really comes together with that beautiful generator energy for man gens is that we're here to just bring things to life really quickly. And you'll see, like, I know very well that sometimes when I'm in a flow and when I'm excited, I might be really moving fast, and that can be overwhelming for people, but it's super important to just know that about yourself and know like this is how you're supposed to be. And the people that are going to come with you and see that are going to. And if they aren't, that's okay too. Just be in your natural flow.
Very frustrating for people or for me.
That's you for you to decide. But
We talk
I
about
think
that a little bit, but it's, yeah, it well, and then you relate it back to the mastery, right? Where it will take
totally.
me longer. So even you just look at this podcast example and, hopefully transparent in regards to how we work together with our energies. But like, I just know Michelle will get shit done really quick and I will tell a lot of stories around that.
Mhm.
Like you're not contributing or you're not this, but then I look at the way that I do things and it's like, okay, like I've really taken audio editing down. And now does that like light me up? Not totally, but I like being done and I like the end result. And I've gotten all of the shortcuts that I need. I've
Yeah.
got the levels where they're at and it's time consuming, but I've eliminated a little bit of that frustration out of there. And again, when we were recording this, when you're like, yeah, mastery is such a generator thing. And you have pieces of that in you as well. But I think it is the thing that I see with man gens a lot. It's almost when people tell me what they're doing in life, like quote unquote, doing professionally or like where they're
Yeah.
headed. I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're man gen. And I had actually met someone who knew human design. And when they said human design, they're like, yeah, I'm a man gen, obviously. And I was like, yes, obviously. But I didn't want to define you. And especially, I'll talk human design with anyone who wants to talk
Yeah.
about it. So,
Well, just the other day, someone was like, what don't you do? What do you not like? I feel like you're doing everything. And it's funny because that might have maybe activated some sort of shame story some time ago. And I've just done so much work around really coming to love that aspect of myself, and just appreciating, obviously we have a podcast. I'm a life coach. I did all these certifications like meditation teaching, holistic nutrition, and not because I wanted to be a holistic nutritionist. I have zero desire to health coach. It's not my passion, but learning that was so cool and such a part of the process. I took what I needed from it and I left the rest. And, I'm a makeup artist too. Like I'm doing all these different things. And whereas that would have been like, oh my God, she can't figure it out. Like this used to be a story, right? Of like, oh God, she doesn't, or fear around what are people going to think? Are they going to think that I can't do one thing? And, it's like that saying of like jack of all trades, master of none, but we always leave off the end part that, better a master at some than a master of none or something like that. I don't know. I'm butchering it, but
yeah, you start to look into the things. And I think when I think just back on my life and my mastery of things as a generator,
Mhm.
I think I've mastered facilitation and training and mastering
Mhm.
that. Of course, there's elevation and all of
Yeah.
those things, but professionally, I've mastered those things, and I now know, right? So when I'm talking to people for potential job opportunities, I can show up more authentic. Hey, I'm going to take some time, but I'm going to figure it out. I am going to get that
Yeah.
mastered because I know that's in my being, and I even think I was such an athlete growing up. And I mean, in high school, I played two travel sports, three for school. And that is very, well, it's moving my body is what lights me up. And then you think of the like
Yeah.
repetitiveness and the mastery and was Poughkeepsie Journal's volleyball player of the year my senior year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I was supposed to play in college and even back there was just something. It was this like, of course, Allie's going to go play in high school. She was voted most athletic. She gets all these accolades for sports. And I just wasn't lit up. And I'm really blessed that I had parents at the time. I mean, literally one day before school, I was supposed to go up and early because I was supposed to be playing volleyball. And I was just like, this is not for me anymore. Like, it's not lighting me
Yeah.
up. And it is interesting as you were talking, that just came up for me because it was almost like that
Hmm.
mastery. And in my head, I still have a friend who coaches D1 volleyball. And he's like, you could have gone and you could have played. But for me, I just felt kind of done. Like I was like,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
yeah.
play, professionally. I don't feel a strong desire to go to the Olympics or anything like that. And so that was a shift. But
Yeah.
it is
But that's important to note,
yeah.
because you might be a generator, right? Listening to this and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm meant to do this thing, right? And just because you're meant to take your time and go deep into the thing and doesn't mean that that has to be your thing forever. It's super important when we say take inventory of what's lighting you up and what's draining you. That applies to those examples of like it was no longer lighting you up. It was time to move on. You've gotten everything that you could, like you've extracted all the juice that you needed to get out of that experience as an athlete. And now you move on into the things that do light you up. And just like there's so many because we're generator and manifesting generator, there's so many real life examples for both of us too. And I think where we differ, so really important to understand, right? Like manifesting generators are really, really gifted at bringing things to life very quickly. And because we're meant to be in this flow of just creating and going, man gens might miss a few steps along the way. That's part of our process. Like I am not here to get into the weeds of all the things and do the step by step because that's what I'm in an ideal world, I would have people around me like Allie who do know the step by step and we can feed into each other's energies and style of working, right? We said at the top of this episode that human design is a system that helps you better understand how you work in partnerships, in teams. And this is one real life example of, I might miss the step by step because I'm meant to be in a flow. And like, if I miss the things, that's okay. I don't need to get caught up on that. And generators are meant to be in that step by step. And, and they're not the only type, but just for this example, like really about that going deep, going in depth. So it's really important if you are a manifesting generator, if you are a generator, it is so critical to have boundaries, to have strong boundaries, because like Ali said before, it's really important to understand. And when we talk about deeper in inner authority and strategy, what to say yes to, what excites you versus what do I think I should be doing? Or what are people telling me? Like Ali's example with sports, it's like, is everyone saying? You're so good at this. You're so great. You should be doing this. Well, if she didn't have that understanding, that boundary of understanding, well, I'm actually not excited by it anymore. It's really easy to get caught up in those should be doings and letting yourself do that. But what happens for these energy beings when we put our energy into things that we're not lit up by? It drains us. It
Mhm.
doesn't build our energy. And, energy is such a renewable source. And so when we put our energy into those things, we build it back up. So again, like just taking inventory, like what is draining me, what is exciting me, how do I start to balance that a little bit more with what I can control, right? There's only so much you can control in your reality and your environments, but how can I do that today? Because our game for manifesting generators is all about magnetism. Like when we are in our element, when we're doing the things that light us up, we are magnetic. So,
Yeah, and I think these are the people that you will often hear like you shine, right?
mhm,
And I think people shine when they are generators shine because they are meant to raise the vibration. My dear
yeah.
friend Mi Ling Chow, she is a generator as well, and
Mhm.
I see that in her when she's in her flow, and everybody will say that about her, but it's when she's in her flow and what she's doing what she loves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not about chasing after anything. Like if you're a manifesting generator and you're a generator, I mean, this applies to a lot of types, all types, but if you feel you are in a state of chasing, then you're not in alignment in this particular area of your life because your strategy is about magnetism, about drawing things to you by being so lit up and so satisfied. Okay, So, do we talk enough
Projectors.
about generators and manifesting generators? I could talk about it a long time, but let's move on because, okay. You want to talk about projectors? You want me to talk?
I mean, projectors, we are not getting into profiles today. One thing with my profile is life's great experimenter. I really learn by living life and learning. And so I know a lot more about generators and manifesting generators because I work
Yeah.
so closely, obviously with Michelle. Projectors, really, and again, I think the way I understand projectors are they're really meant to specialize in something, really meant to dive deep into certain areas, and they won't need as much energy when they're on the right path to really be able to accomplish the things that they're looking to accomplish. That is like high level, the way I would explain projectors.
Yeah.
What's if someone were to ask you like what is a projector, how do you describe projectors to them?
Yeah, well, when you say they won't need as much energy, I also look at it as, if generators and manifesting generators are that life force and have that vitality and full energy or full tank of energy, projectors, and even as we get into manifestors and reflectors, they're going to be, they need to be really, really specific about how and where they put their energy into things because, like you said, projectors are meant to go, have that thing, and it's not one thing, but to really know the things that they are good at, that they are passionate about, because projectors are here to guide us. They're here to be the leaders. And again, like I want to preface this by saying that just because we say, oh, generators are meant to do this, right? That doesn't mean that if you are a generator, you're not meant to be the leader or the guide. That's so not true because, again, human design is not meant to limit you or restrict you in any way. But where projectors' energies are best met or best expressed is as the people who are teaching, guiding, and leading us because they're not here to do all the doing. And they have this ebb and flow of energy similar to manifestors. And so their worth and their value doesn't come from how much they're doing or how hard they're working. It's in their unique perspective. My husband, Keith, who I've talked about like 3 times already, but he is a projector. And, part of the programming with projectors can be that they feel like they need to be doing all the doing and working hard to show everyone how good they are. But the truth of the matter for projectors is that all you need to do is know what you are really good at, get really good at that thing, and then let people see you. Because that's how you create opportunities for yourself. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but they can be really sensitive to energy. So it's really important that, I think they say like an ideal work environment for a projector would be to work a few hours a day, like 3 hour workday, and the rest of their time, use their downtime to just like learn, hone their craft. That's really about like research the things, not do all the doing, not do all the work, but really understand their craft, what they're good at, because projectors' unique perspective is their gift. They're here to really help us understand, help us guide, lead, and teach us how to be more efficient. And so I love the real life example of seeing my husband go into work environments. And he literally, I mean, I'll just say this really quickly, but he went into a school, boarding school, to go coach baseball because that's what he's done for years and years. One of the things that he's done for a long time. And as a result of going to be a baseball coach, they asked him to be into like 5 different roles over the course of 2.5 years because they were like, oh, I see him. He was just doing what he was really good at. And people were seeing it and recognizing, which is a really huge part for projectors, is feeling recognized and valued for what you're good at. Because again, they're not here to either to like chase after the thing. They're just here to be really good and know their own value so that like know your value, go do the thing, be seen so that other people can see the value you bring and your unique perspective and really invite you in.
Well, and great example because he was really invited, and we'll get to strategy in just a little bit, but
Of
like
course.
invited for these
Yes.
new roles, right? It's
Yeah. Projectors love systems. I've heard this a lot too. And when we say systems, I mean like systems, like because there's that piece of efficiency. So they really love to be able to see something like have, and when we say like projectors aren't here to do all the doing. It's like I think about as a leader, right? I've managed teams for years. And if I'm in the weeds doing all the doing, how as a leader can I step back and see the bigger picture so that I can understand where the inefficiencies are? How can we make things more productive, more efficient, more effective? And so if I'm in the weeds doing all the doing as a projector, then I don't get to see the big picture and actually do what I'm really good at, which is seeing where to make things better.
Mhm. And I will say that I have projectors in my life where we'll say adult projectors, and obviously just with like what we do and our work that we do, you just become I become more observant. And what I will say, the thing that I've noticed about projectors in my circle is that I really notice more so than other energy types when they are working their 13-hour days in corporate America. It is just, I mean, you physically can see and feel the exhaustion in
Yeah.
them. And I don't know that I would have picked that up earlier on in life, but I can really, I don't know, more so than I think maybe generators or man gens. And again, everyone doesn't fit in those boxes, but I do see a lot of projectors who are overextending themselves. It feels to me like I'm seeing them way more exhausted or way more fatigued than I might other
Ah,
energy types. That's just
yeah.
my experience.
Well, for sure, because they're so sensitive to energy. So projectors, similar to reflectors, and yeah, similar to reflectors, but they may be like, let's say, I mean, I'm a manifesting generator. I know that there are times where like he may be picking up on my energy and then and so there's it's two sides to it, right? There's the times where the projector's like, I gotta get this thing done, I'm working on something big or whatever, and they can really lean into the people on their team or in their life that have a lot of energy and they can leverage that energy. And I think what you're explaining is like on the flip side, which probably happens more often than not and maybe much more unconsciously, is they're picking up on that energy from someone who's got high energy, who
Mhm.
has a lot to spare, and they're picking up on it and they're not able to discern what's theirs and what's not. And so they're thinking like, oh yeah, I can operate like a generator. I could just keep doing the thing. I could keep working and doing all the doing. And they don't realize like, oh wait, actually the most efficient, the most, you know, aligned way for me to express my energy right now wouldn't be to just be doing all of this. It's actually to see where the inefficiencies are and bring my unique perspective,
Mhm.
and what I'm really good at. So the last thing about projectors before we move on is to just like know what do people recognize you for? What are people coming to you for?
Mm.
And just do more of that and let the opportunities come to you, be seen. All right, so manifestors. These are the initiators. Again, like projectors, they are sensitive to energy, so they're not here to do all the doing. Oftentimes manifestors are, I liken them to like the Aquarius energy of being
Mhm.
super innovative and being able to see into the future, like what is the collective moving towards, but maybe we don't fully see yet. The manifestors oftentimes can see that and know, because they're here to bring new ideas to life. And so when you talked about earlier about maybe there being more manifestors and more reflectors in the future, what comes up for me is that, like, yeah, in the future, we do need people who are here to just get things started and see future thinking or where we're headed before the collective does, so that we can keep moving us forward. And
Mhm.
so, I have a niece who's a manifester, and, it's so great because we always talk about, one, they're not meant to do all the doing. So these physical strains, like manifestors operate in rest and surge modes. So you're going to have um, times where you have creative spurts of energy where you're like bringing stuff to life, you're creating things. But because you're an initiator, you may not have to see your projects or the creations all the way through. Ideally, you would maybe have people around you who can help bring your vision to life so that you can step back for that rest phase because you are going to need moments of deep rest because you need to integrate, you need to be open and take in so that you can be open to what's coming next. What's the next thing that I can put my energy in that creative surge?
Mhm.
And so, manifestors, it's really important to have solitude, to have autonomy. And when you're in your work environments or anywhere in your life, it's really important that you feel that sense of freedom and autonomy, and not like you're working for, again, these are ideal scenarios. It's not everyone's reality. You can't just quit your job or stop, living in the environments that you do. But those environments that you're working under someone or you're having to work on someone else's schedule, those can be maybe really challenging for manifestors,
Mhm.
because they do need to be able to operate their energy in the ebb and flow, and their energy is super super powerful. It can be, if you've ever met a manifestor and their energy may not be for everyone. I mean, that applies to all human beings, but manifestors especially, their energy is very potent, very impactful. And so it can be polarizing. It can either really inspire you or really trigger you. What were you going to say?
I know two manifestors, one personally, and one is Taylor Swift. And so I know two manifestors, but I think the manifestor energy and 9% of the population, so it would just be less
Yeah.
common that we would cross paths with them. But when I found out one, yes, the friend that I know that's a manifestor, just this, you're right, like sometimes polarizing, right? But
Yeah.
I because we're in this area of work, we know we can dive deeper into, is that person polarizing or am I just feeling like they're polarizing, right? And you can learn more about it. But when you think of manifestors and that energy, Taylor Swift, I think, is a really good example just by how she is innovative with her music, how she changes up genres, how she changes up the way she does things, and just even let alone her Eras tour. She had this idea. She's like, they're like, what are you going to do? You've been on hiatus for so long. Like, you've had a couple of albums come out. Like, you can't tour your whole playlist, like all of your albums. Like, you can't have a three
Mhm.
and a half hour long concert. And her response was pretty much like, why?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
said so? And
Yeah.
right, Google, the success of the Eras tour just, leaps and bounds. But that's a really good example, I think, of a manifestor and how things come to fruition and come to light for them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and also like with that example, it's so funny. We always talk about it. Like, I'm not a Swiftie. I don't care about her music. I don't really care about her, but you love her. And so
Don't
like
make us lose
it's a
the
perfect
Swifty
example.
audience.
Yeah, like there's probably a lot of people and they're going to be like, Michelle, we hate. No, I'm just kidding. But that's the truth of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
like that's her energy. That's what she's here to express. And it's not for everyone. So for manifestors, the key is to know like, that's my power. That's my energy. And I don't need to change that. And just because I might be triggering or polarizing to you or inspiring to you on both ends of it, right? Like it's not meant to affect you. Whether you inspire half the world, whether you trigger them, none of that is your business as a manifestor. It's all about just being like so in your own power and not being affected by any of it, good, bad, ugly, all of it, right? Like it doesn't matter. I'm just going to be here who I am because I'm here to initiate and bring new things into the world. Okay, reflectors. So the most rare reflectors are, they have, and I think we didn't say this in your chart, but when you pull up your chart, you have kind of the description on one side oftentimes, and then you'll have like what looks like a body chart, a body graph. Reflectors have every one of their centers open because they are our collective mirrors. They are so rare and they really give you a sense of how the environments that they operate in, the teams, the communities that they live within, they really give us an understanding of what the culture is like, what the overall feeling is like, because they're taking in and they're reflecting. So if you think about just the name, um, karmic mirrors, like reflectors are mirrors to us. We're all mirrors to one another, but reflectors are truly here to just um, be super sensitive to those energies around them and the environments, and then amplify and reflect that back to us. So I love Erin Claire Jones calls reflectors, or Erin Claire Jones says that the ideal job for a reflector would be the CEO whisperer, that person that's just like whispering to the CEO because they're there kind of not behind the scenes because I know like one reflector and she is
Like
just
chief
like,
of staff almost, I think is like
yeah, like
the
yeah, they have the temperature check. Like they always are that like human barometer of like how are things going? Well, let's check in with this person. And I think that's
certainly
really cool.
reflectors, you can be whatever you want in this world, right? They have the ability to be anything they want at any time. It's about really being able to discern, what's for you.
Yeah, they're not here to be one thing.
Hmm.
And it's not like their question is not, who am I or who am I here to be? It's like every day you wake up, who do I feel like? What do I feel like today? And just let that be enough. Honor your unique, your unique nature and just flow with that.
Yeah. They really crave that full and varied experience. They're the easy to pick up, go along with, match the energy of whatever vibes and people are around them. And so, really paying attention energetically when they're drawn to environments that make them feel good, because that's really the place that the universe wants you to be in the moment. It wants you to be in that energetic environment and an essence.
Yeah. I also love, again, bringing it back to that, like if we see in the future, maybe in our lifetime or maybe not, but see more and more reflectors that speak so deeply to the Aquarian age and to the collective of like, we need more people who can flex and just be fluid in the way that they show up and also can reflect back to us um, as a collective. What is the culture? What are we, how are things going as a collective or in their own communities? I think that's going to be so, so important because it just feels like the way of the future in so, so many ways. So, a couple of things about reflectors. It's really important for you to have your own space at home, like a sacred space. So, you're sensitive to environment. So, curate the shit out of your own space, whether it's your room, your apartment, your house, whatever it is, your workspace, your desk, I don't know, curate that space and make sure that it feels so special and so sacred to you because it's going to be really important that you get to go back to that space, kind of like empty out of all the things so that you can continue to reconnect with yourself and also just knowing like similar to projectors, it's a lot about being in spaces where people recognize and see the value that you bring. That's really important to you.
The reflector is a child, the one that I know, and that is how that energy shows up. It's I want to
Mm,
play this instrument today. I want to be part of this group. Now I want to be this when I grow up. And it's interesting to watch how that really plays along with who she's surrounded with, what her friends are into, what the adults around her are into, and what they're about. And so, to your point again, it's really important that they have their own energy and space. And that maybe
yeah,
leads into strategy. Might it be a good time to dig a little bit deeper into
1000%.
strategy? Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So, strategy, everyone has a different strategy. How did we describe strategy again? So, our energy is,
So, strategy is how you create opportunities. So, you could say it's like how you manifest, it's how you create opportunities. And I think in the notes here, I don't know who wrote this, but I like it. It's the path of least resistance for interacting with the world.
mhm.
And I think that's a beautiful way to describe it. So, each energy type has their own strategy. Um, so manifestors, your strategy is to inform before acting. And so if manifestors are here to initiate and bring things to life or bring things into the world and get things started, it's really important to inform. And that could just be as simple as like letting people know what you're doing. It's not about getting permission from anyone because you're just here to do whatever you want to do. I mean, in good conscience.
Well, I think
But
that's why
yeah,
the polarizing can come up, because I do
yeah,
think, like, considering your
totally.
environment, and why I think you and I are so passionate about talking about these things and even just working with each other in this way is like, as soon as I heard that that person was a manifestor, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And it almost, sometimes it's like, why are you just telling everyone what to do and what they should be doing and da 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 da,
Yeah.
right? It can seem annoying, or like in corporate America, like you're overstepping your bounds. Like that's not your job, that's not your role, but it is their job energetically. It is their role
Yeah.
energetically. Of course, there's other things that play there, but right, like just getting along and being cohesive in environments, because it doesn't mean that manifestors get the final word on everything just because they're manifestors. But yeah, it's interesting to think through that energy type
Yeah.
and their strategy.
Well, and I also think about it this way too. If manifestors are here to initiate and get things started and also need to honor the ebb and flow of their energy, then they need people on their side that are going to help them bring the vision to life. So if you don't inform people, then you're not going to get the right people who step up and say, like, I see your vision. I want to be on board with you.
Mhm.
And so it's like, you catch more bees with honey, but for manifestors, you catch more bees by just telling people what you're up to. And it's again, it's not about asking for permission. It's just like, hey, here's this thing I want to create or I want to do. Here's what I'm doing. Or here's, I think I'm going to go learn how to do this new skill. And the right people are going to come out of the woodworks and be in like really show up for you. And that way, like to your point about the polarizing energy, I think that's really important, or the inspiring energy, just letting people know. And I really resonate with that too, about the manifesting, the informing in the man gen. Like there are so many times where I'm like bouncing off to different things, and in hindsight, I'll be like, you know what? I actually could have just like been a little bit better at communicating what I was up to, because everybody's like, what's she doing now? So I really resonate with that.
I heard on My Human Design, they were talking about strategy, and specifically right now with just the energetics going on, is that because we are in this paradigm shift, if you believe that, I believe we're in a big paradigm shift. And because of the energetics around it, Jenna and Taylor talk about the effect of every cause is going to be 10 times bigger. So, like throwing you out of alignment, which is why it's so important to learn about your strategy and lean into that and start to see how that can curate, right, an ebb and flow and an ease of how you're doing light. So they were asking like some questions in your strategy of asking yourself if you're in alignment or not with your strategy. For manifestors, it's where are you still hiding and not being open and honest and volunteering your urges and the things that you feel like
Mm,
saying? Where are you feeling
I love
small?
that.
And that can apply to you as well, manifesting generator, because you have
I
that
really love
energy
that.
in you. So through each one, I would love to just throw out as well what they were saying about this strategy.
Yeah,
So then
please do.
manifesting generators and generators, their strategy is to really respond to life, not to initiate. And so the question to ask yourself here is, where are you still doing things that you haven't responded to?
Hmm.
Let's talk more about responding. How do you find responding showing up for you and your strategy with your man Genness?
Okay, well, so, we're all here to respond, generators, manifesting generators, but we respond in different ways because we each have different inner authorities. So, where you and I differ, whereas, so let's say you and I, our strategy is to respond. And going back to what I said earlier, it's not about chasing after things, it's about drawing opportunities to you and responding to life. So, I am a sacral gut response. And so for me, responding is about a physical, visceral body response. And, something about manifesting generators or that sacral response is like getting asked questions, because I'm not always just going to come up with a thing and be like, yep, this is what I want to do. It's always going to be a response to something. Like I see something on Instagram that excites me, or I see a way that someone is doing, putting out, and it was something really beautifully aesthetically and talking about their services. And I get a response, like I get an exciting feeling, or I get a bodily response, like, ooh, I like that. And we'll talk deeper about that in a second. But so it's like, it's not always necessarily someone's going to ask you some clear cut question. Michelle, do you want to be XYZ? Like, no, it's like I may see something outside, like, oh, this is really beautiful. These trees and whatever else. And now I'm like feeling a response to go out and be outside and take my practice outside or take my laptop outside and work outside, right? It could be that simple everyday response, or it could be about, the littlest things. So you have a different response, but, or I mean, you have a different inner authority. It's emotional, which we'll talk about, but so it shows up slightly different. How do you interpret the strategy to respond to life and not
Think
necessarily?
just as you are, the big aha is I think when I first started learning about to respond, I looked at it more as like these big overarching things. And I'll give you just an example. I mean, I
Mhm.
think as of late, let's just go professional. I'm in like a little stuckness with, which is why my human design podcast was so impactful to come out this week. But one thing for me, I'm like, it really drains my energy to get, everyone should say, like, everyone would say, well, how much time are you spending a day job searching and going on job boards? And I've been at it long enough that I'm like, this is so draining for me, right?
Yeah.
And what I've started to see is like when I get alerts about a job, I can respond to that. Or, when I kind of
Yeah, that's a good
pause, like
example.
even yesterday, and I felt like it was a really cool validation. And I'm not saying that this is a new job opportunity, but an HR leader that I used to work at pinged me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I'm randomly in New York City, want to meet up for coffee and lunch? Like, so I'm like, oh, you're responding. Here's how responding works.
Yeah.
And I think what I forget about sometimes, which is why Karmic Mirror just lights me up in our conversations, is to your point, it's even about getting clear and like responding to like, hey, I didn't like getting up that early, or I did like getting up that early, or I didn't like what
Yeah.
I ate for breakfast, or I did like what I ate for breakfast. So to your point, it's all about responding. And I think where I'm living in this space right now is because I like a good structure. I like a good productivity. So, for me, I'm like, am I just supposed to put my headphones in and just dance in my apartment all day? That doesn't seem like, and you're
Yes.
like, yes, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's so funny because remember the other day, God, what were we talking about? And I was like, you know what? My morning practice is putting on some music, getting myself out of bed and moving my body. And I'm not going to worry about, normally I have like a Kundalini practice and I'm sticking with it. But this, for whatever reason, the change of seasons, I'm like, it's not working anymore. I'm not responding in the same way. I'm not excited by this practice. So let's switch it up. What does feel good? Oh, well, the other night when I heard this song, I was like, yep, this is it. I'm responding to this and I just want to put on this song. And I've been listening to like some songs just on super repeat because I'm like, this feels really good right now. This feels super satisfying to be, you know, addicted to the Sabrina Carpenter album. I'm just kidding.
Which
Uh,
is also a very generator thing. Didn't
yes.
we heard about that, like the playlists and the over and over and over and
Oh,
over
yeah.
again with the songs. We had heard that's what I'm thinking about there. And I know yours shows up just a little different than mine, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's like I/you could listen sometimes to the same song over
totally.
and over and over and over
Oh,
again.
well, the other day, remember I voiced you about the dancing, like putting on a song instead of like having some, routine putting on a song. And um, you were like, well, I just heard it, I was just listening to Jenna Zoe and she said this. So like maybe I feel like dance, like it was like just giving yourself things to respond to.
Yeah, and Jenna Zoe is a projector, so that's not necessarily her strategy. But I had said to you, and again, these are the things I think you see, like responding. They will keep coming up.
Yeah.
Where Michelle's like dancing, I'm like, yeah, my whole family, we love dancing, we love moving, and then you're like, I'm going to start dancing again. And then Jenna Zoe has, talked about how her workout regime looks a lot different. She wakes up and just dances
Yeah.
dancing. And
Yeah.
if you follow her, she's always showing herself dancing. And, again, so now I get to think about responding like, oh, when they're talking about dancing, does that light me up or does it not? And, again,
Yeah.
maybe it's not that I have headphones on all day long, but I think one thing, like literally before this podcast, as a generator too, I feel like a lot of energy. And I
Mm-hmm.
can like shake a little bit when I'm really excited. So like before this
Yeah.
recording, you'll like it. I put on Sabrina Carpenter and I just bopped around my living room. We started 15 minutes later
Oh,
and I
good.
just was like, dance a little bit if it's one song. So
Yeah.
that's how I'm responding too, even just on little things, like
Yeah.
little
That's exactly it.
conversations.
Um, I love that. I really love the things. I gotta make a note of that manifest or what you said in the human design episode about where are you being small and because that is a really those are really powerful questions. And that's part of it too, like giving yourself things to respond to. Like you said with notifications, it's like I put certain things in my reminders every day and it's like, oh, I'm giving myself an opportunity to respond. And it's just like anything, you're strengthening that connection.
Mhm.
So, projectors, the strategy for projectors is to wait for the invitation. Projectors, like we said, they're sensitive to energy. They're not here to do all the doing. They're here to, um, you know, be seen, to know their value, know their unique perspective that they bring to the table, know that deeply, and then be seen. Just go do the thing, be seen doing it so that people can invite you in. And, that's one way, that's how you protect your energy as a projector, because oftentimes you can get into this phase of like over giving in order to get recognized. But the reality is, you really just need to master the thing that you're drawn to, what you're excited about right now, or what you're passionate about, what you're being called to, and just know your value so deeply, and then let people see you when you feel called to share. And be invited in. And I love the wait for the invitation because it doesn't mean like a formal invitation. Hello, would you like to come teach our team this or whatever?
Although
It's
it
like
could be.
it could be a
Hmm.
formal invitation. And sometimes it could just be like, hey, I really love the way you do that thing. Can you tell me more about it? Or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
It's for you to discern, am I being invited in? And here's the real life example I use with my husband all the time is I think, and this is my perspective, I think that sometimes projectors can be perceived as like know-it-alls. Sorry, Keith.
Or one lines
But
and profiles.
or one lines,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, there's layers, right? But and I say this because if they haven't been invited in to share their perspective, sometimes people are just not responsive to it. They're like, "What? Why are you telling me how to live my life? Why are you telling me how to do my job?" And the reality is like they're just not ready to hear your message. They're not ready to hear your unique perspective, and that's totally okay. But when the right people invite you in, they appreciate, they recognize, and they value what you are doing, then it's like free for all. You're like, yep, go in and tell me all the things because that's when they're going to be most receptive to your message. And it's going to be the right use of your gifts and the right use of your energy as a projector.
Mhm. And the
And okay, go ahead.
and the question to ask yourself as a projector is where are you insisting on being heard? And I think it's that
Ooh,
insisting. Another cool example is because again, I think yes, like you could literally be invited. I mean, but it also can
yeah.
show up to your point in a lot of different ways. And Jenna Zoe gave the explanation of she had, she wrote a book and the book came out, and of course, PR or whoever is, hey, who are you going to send this book to? Right. And there's a lot of strategy behind that. And she really just, it's like, hey, I just want to send it to people I'm already connected with, right? Like these
Mhm.
people who are in my circle who I'm already connected with. And again, this isn't verbatim, but the sentiment was they ended up, there was somebody on that list, and I don't know the background, but it was like, you probably should send it to this person, right? You can just assume maybe they have tons of followers or, whatever. Let's like
Yeah,
help get some influence. And she just started giggling because she's like, the one person we put on that list we sent the book to, it got sent back because there wasn't like a correct address on it. So that was just
that is funny.
really interesting. I also think about our friend Sarah, who reads human
Yeah.
design and who we were going to have on this episode. She will be on, I'm sure of it, because she's multifaceted and just has a lot of different gifts and strengths. She'll be on an episode at some point, but the recording of this episode was a really cool way of seeing a projector lean into her strategy. And, she was just very transparent. Like at this time, I can't remember the exact way you said it. Like, I just don't think she's really clear at what offerings she wants to put out there or where she wants to focus her time. Well, she does know where she wants to focus her time. It's on her two little ones. She
Yeah,
had her
yeah.
second baby a little not too long ago. And so it was really cool to be in communication with her as she's really leaning into her strategy. And, for me, then in turn, I can say, hey, I know your strategy is to be invited. So I'm probably always going to invite you. But if there's a softer or gentler way that you need to be invited, like let me know and we can work
Yeah,
together because we both have the same, well, all three of us have the sentiment of she'll be on at some point. We just need to make sure it's aligned for all of us. But what
that's
a
exactly.
beautiful way to use her strategy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and as a projector, we're like, we want to make sure you have the energy for this. And
Hmm.
so when you feel that you do, you'll let us know. But the invitation is always going to be there because we know it's going to happen. We trust that. And we trust that like you are going to discern your own energy just as we are. Okay, so reflectors, the strategy is to wait. And we can go more into this because we're going to talk about inner authority, which will tell you a little bit more. But reflectors really need to kind of, um, their strategy is to wait because reflectors, again, they're so sensitive to energy, but they're so closely linked to the moon and to the rhythm and phases of the moon. And so tell me more about that because I think you have more real life experience or
Yeah.
examples with that kind of moon phases.
Certainly, there's places you can find out more about reflectors, but because it is less of that population, again, maybe if you're a reflector out there and you know more about reflector stuff, ping us. We'd love to have you on, even if we just had an episode talking more about reflectors, maybe at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the question here was where are you not waiting because you want to act on the thing right in front of you? And
Mm,
the one reflector that I know is a child. So I think there's also nuances to being a child and maybe being an adult, but really it's it's waiting.
it's
and,
waiting. Well,
and
yeah.
we'll talk more about, and I think from like what I was talking about, like bringing it full circle, where we were talking about maybe parenting or how you can support and help kids. I think that's how it
Yeah.
shows up a little bit more for me in this instance. So I think a couple of things, big things, really giving that reflector time to process that. So getting
Yeah.
ahead of things. So giving them a longer time to process. And to your point, I think I would try and create like environments like, hey, let's just go chill in your bedroom and like, let's
Mhm.
just sit in quiet and like, let's journal. And of course, is there a piece of that where she wants to reflect what I'm doing and journaling? But it was very intentional to give her her own surrounding, her own space. And really, I think that's their strategy. And I think I'm thinking about it more of like a strategy of how we can support reflectors in this world. But, also maybe pausing before you sign up for the thing that, right? Like everyone's doing it
Mhm.
right now. So maybe pause and wait on it before you sign up to do the thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because they're so sensitive to energies. They're taking in the world around them. They are the collective mirrors. So they may be mirroring someone else's energy, someone else's strategy to respond or a gut response. They may be reflecting that back and that's not their strategy. And so and also yes, they can absolutely reflectors can decide like who am I today? They can be whatever they want, right? They're not one thing. And also give yourself time to know so that you can be really just really specific with your energy, knowing that like it's not going to be for everything.
Mhm.
Okay, so before we move on to inner authority, really quickly, your energy type, how you're meant to express your energy in the world, right? Your strategy is how you create opportunities, or like I said, maybe how you manifest opportunities, how you create those opportunities in your life. And then what we're going to talk about now, and to really close out the episode, is inner authority. This is your decision maker. So if strategy is how you create opportunities, your inner authority helps you decide whether or not the opportunities are right for you.
Can we start with the lunar authority? I think because we're just on
Yeah. Yeah,
reflectors,
yeah, let's start. Let's go with
I
that
think it makes sense to continue down that line because
for sure.
before we started this episode, Michelle and I were really like, what's the difference?
Yeah,
But I think
I
it all just flows so naturally together. So again, it's
think so too.
as reflectors, you can't make life decisions based on one thing. So, if you don't know for sure with your being that that thing is your thing, wait and see if that message is going to return and then move with the
Mhm.
wave of your life. So there are the authorities, and the way you explained it is how we assess whether or not opportunities are right for us or not, is
Yeah,
what we're
yeah,
talking about. And this is a whole new area of your chart or a new element to your chart. So
totally.
that lunar authority, what do you know about the lunar authority?
Yeah, so lunar authority, this is for reflectors. And so if your inner authority is how you're best designed to make decisions or know whether the opportunities are right for you, reflectors have a lunar authority, and that means that they really need to align their decisions with the lunar cycle. So, with the 28 to 30-day cycle of the moon. And that doesn't mean for like your everyday decisions, right? You're not like, what am I going to eat today?
What
Let
am I
me
going
wait
to eat
30
for lunch?
days.
I need to wait 28 days and then I can
Yeah.
start eating.
But it's really for the big decisions in your life. And the reason why is because you need that full lunar cycle to be able to just live it out from different angles to make sure that it's right for you. And so we know like that's not always practical, but the reality for reflectors, and because you're such a rare energy type, and you are almost like showing us the way of reflectors. You're showing us what it means to reflect back to the collective. You need to just give yourself permission and know that you are here to operate on your own time. And know that you have a different set of rules than everyone else. And so specific around big decisions, but just know like you may take in other people's energy and they may influence how you're feeling in the moment. So when you're making big decisions for yourself or your life, just let yourself play it out over the course of that 28 to 30 days or that lunar cycle and just ride the kind of ebbs and flows, sample what it feels like, everything that's coming up from all the different angles and approaches because you really are so rare, so unique in your energy type that you're on your own operating system. And the more that reflectors, and again, like to what you were saying about how do we support reflectors, and also just how do we let reflectors continue to give themselves permission, validate that they're on their own set of rules and they're just going to do things a little bit differently than the majority of the population.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so your authority is to wait, or your strategy is to wait, and where the authority comes in is to wait for that lunar cycle.
Alignment. I think alignment is a big
Yeah.
one. So when I was talking before about see if those messages continue to return, seems like
Yes.
a something to highlight here. And then at some point I had listened to a podcast where it was helping each energy type and their strategy with helpful hints. And I had heard for lunar authorities and reflectors specifically, really getting in connected with the energy of the moon. And so
Hmm.
putting water outside at night to take in the energy of the moon and drinking that each day will assist that. And for the little reflector that we started that with, we started calling it moon juice. And it was just a way to support. And Michelle laughs because moon juice is like her one of fave brand and
Yeah.
influencer. So when I kept saying moon juice, she's like, "Do you actually mean moon juice?" I was like, "No, it's just what the
Yeah.
reflectors,
I love
moon
it.
energy was started to be called was moon juice." But just wanted to throw that little tidbit out there for any reflectors out there that might be helpful
Yeah.
as well.
All right. So we talked about the strategy to respond for manifesting generators and generators, and where that slightly differs um, in how you decide to respond to what opportunities is going to be, whereas we have emotional authorities. So we'll talk a little bit about that. That's possible. The emotional authorities can be any type except reflectors. So, emotional authority, Allie, you have an emotional authority, and they are not meant to make big decisions in the moment. So, what else?
Clarity comes with time. There are emotional waves, and also emotional waves. I think the thing to highlight here that's been really helpful for me to understand about emotional waves is you can literally be going through an emotional wave and it has nothing to do with anything going on in your life. And so
Yeah.
you could wake up and feel high stressed, high angst. I mean, on the opposite end too, like super elated, super at peace. And it's really about taking the time to get into more of a neutral place to get clarity so that you can make decisions, right? Like, does
Yeah.
this light me up? Does it not? Circling back to that generator energy, is it a hell yes or a hell no? So, not necessarily about thinking on decisions for days, although bigger decisions it might be, but smaller decisions probably wouldn't. But it's more about just making a decision from a calm, cool, collected place. And we probably are going to end up having an episode of emotional versus non-emotional at
A
one
thousand
point.
percent. We've got to, because we mention this maybe more than anything else throughout our episodes, is the emotional wave. And and to your point, like it's not about, you may need to give yourself time to get to that neutral place because the idea is that you are riding the wave of your emotions. You're feeling out the highs, you're feeling out the lows, and you're not thinking about it. It's not about getting into your head, right? We always say like get out of your head and into your body.
Mhm.
And where this differs from the sacral, visceral body response, that is the gut response, which is what mine is a sacral authority. But the emotional authority is here to ride the waves of your emotions so that you can play it out and that you can get to that calm, cool, collected place, but you're feeling into it. And clarity comes with time. And so if you're on an emotional high, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that thing. Of course, I can commit to this. And then you go and you hit your emotional low and you're like, why the hell did I say yes to this person? Why did I make these plans? Why did I do the thing, right? Or on the opposite end, you may be on an emotional low and you're like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be around anyone. I don't want to do this thing. And you say no to the right to the right opportunities because you didn't get yourself to that neutral place. And so it's super, super important to give yourself time. It could take a few days. It could take overnight. It's not about being in your head. It's not about thinking about, is this right for me? No, it's like feel into it. How do I feel about this situation, about this decision? It feels good right now. I feel really awesome. I'm 100% into it. Well, then that's probably a signal that I need to wait it out a little bit more and like feel all, the angles of it.
Mhm.
So
And I think
we
it's
talk about this a lot.
Yeah, we do talk about it a lot. And the big
It's
area
important.
I think to highlight here again, because we could go on and on about this, but the big thing with the emotional authority is just taking that time to discern because how many times you can just say yes to things. So a helpful verbiage here is sounds great. Can I sleep on it? Sounds great. I'll get back to you. And it's really that thing too, especially as generators, when we were talking about that big juicy energy, is you may really want a generator to come and to do the thing, but if their emotional authority is a nah, no, then you don't really want them there. We want generators around when they're lit up. So you start to think about things. I was invited to a book launch party tomorrow night that I'm really excited about. And I invited my best friend and we were going. And this morning she texted me and was like, hey, I'm just not feeling it. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I literally, it's not that I don't care because it's kind of like VCon, right? I would love to have people I love along with me for things that light me up. However, good for you leaning. I know she's an emotional authority. Good for you leaning into your emotional authority. And if at a neutral place, you don't want to get on the train and head into the city on a Wednesday night for a book launch party, you don't need to go. And that doesn't have to do anything. That has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And so that's just another way of like listening to your authority. And at the time, I'm sure she was like, "Yeah, this is awesome." And now, as it comes up closer, it's just not lighting her up. And those are just little ways you can start to listen to your emotional authority. And again, we could
Mhm.
go on and on and on and give so many examples of how it shows up. I mean, I think in literally like a span of 5 voice notes, you've often responded back to me and said, I've literally just witnessed your entire emotional wave.
Yeah, yeah, because I can hear it and also I can feel it. Like I'm an open emotional center and so sometimes that's exactly it. I'm like, okay, there you go. You rode the wave. You talked yourself through it. Like you felt through, not even like thought, but felt through it, went through the emotions of all the different angles or all the different points throughout your emotional wave, and then came to like what felt clear to you, what was aligned. And that's so important for emotional authority. So, sacral authority is the next type of inner authority. That is your gut response. And it's so important. Like, how much messaging do you hear just in the world that's like, listen to your gut, listen to your gut? That's not for everyone. And so that's why it's so important to know these
And there's
things.
also programming where it's like, don't really listen to your gut in some
Yeah, yeah.
instances,
Well,
right?
exactly. And like, or I mean, you could even go on a physiological level, right? If you physically, like, I'll use this as an example. I'm a sacral authority, which is only possible for generators or manifesting generators to have this gut response. And if you're like on a physical level, if you don't have a healthy gut microbiome, and you don't feel connected to your gut response, it's going to be really hard to get in tune with that. So I think that's important too, because everything is so connected. But for sacral authorities, we are here to make the gut responses in the moment. So it is going to feel like a physical, a visceral response in your body. And that might feel like expansion. It could feel in your gut, in your whole like upper body. You feel excited, you feel expanded, or it might feel like contraction. I always think about when I feel like tightness in my chest, like I'm being restricted, then it's definitely a no for me. I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good in my body. And so we say full body yes, like that's where you want to put your energy into. And you know, the gut response is not similar to the next one, which is a splenic, which is your intuition. It's not here to make
Hmm.
sense. It's not always going to make sense. More times than not, it's not going to make sense because your mind is not making gut decisions, right? Like if you're in your mind and you're overthinking, then it's not your gut response. And so if you are a sacral authority, it's super important to pay attention to the very first visceral response before your mind kicks in and starts to overthink or your ego starts to tell you all the reasons why. And the programming tells you why something isn't for you or is for you. It's important to just pay attention. Where's the visceral response in my body? And so, in order to strengthen that and tune into it, one, it's important to just ask yourself, like, how connected do I feel to my gut, to my sacral response? And, one of the easiest ways is to just let the people in your life ask you questions. And that's for everyday life, for big decisions, whatever it is, right? Like I mentioned before, to respond, like, I'm just not going to be the person that just is like out of the blue, like, I think I'm going to do this. I need something to respond to, and I need to have that gut response. So even for us, I know there's been times where I'm like, can you ask that differently? Or like, the way that you're asking it makes me feel like I'm put on the spot or like I don't have an answer for that. And it's not that I'm not clear. It's just like I need you to ask me
Yeah.
differently. And then I can have a good response to it or have a response to it. So I think that's something to pay attention to.
And I think for just sacral authority as well, watch the trap of feeling like you have to over explain your decisions to people. And I know that that's really, we can be set up for that, but you're just going to have that knowing, you're going to have that reaction. And I think the other just very high level, I don't want to dive deep into this on this episode, but just because I'm an emotional authority doesn't mean I can't have a sacral response to something. right? It's just
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
necessarily, it's not my authority. It's not the main way that should be driving. So I just want to
Yeah,
highlight that we may have access to some of these other areas that can support us or authorities that might support us, but your main authority is really how you're meant to navigate primarily.
100%. Yeah.
We're moving on to next. Splenic projectors and manifestors only?
Yeah, this is only for projectors and manifestors. And your splenic is your intuition. And so we always hear, trust your intuition, trust your intuition. And like Ali said, there are layers to this. It's just that we each have our own way that we are best designed to make decisions. So it's not the only way, but it's the best way for us individually. So, for example, I have a defined spleen, which means I can be connected to my intuition, but my best way to make decisions is that visceral gut response. So I'm going to follow that and I'm going to pay attention to my intuition. So the splenic authority, this is the quietest authority because your intuition speaks in whispers and it doesn't repeat itself. And so your intuition is that like knowing, it's an inner knowing. It's spontaneous and it's not here to be made sense of or to explain. It's just an inner knowing. It's your intuition. It's that intuitive ping that's like it whispers to you. And so it's really important if you have a splenic authority that you have um, maybe some practices or anything that helps you be in tune with that quiet whisper of your intuition. So that could look like having a meditation practice. It could look like having a quiet space to go to. It could look like being in nature. It could look like having alone time. But the point is that, like I said, it's a whisper. It's quiet. And so it's really important that you are feeling connected to that and, you know, and know that you have these practices that will help you strengthen that connection to your intuition. Anything else to add to splenic authority?
No, this is going to be the area that I'm not as proficient in because the majority of people that I roll with in this realm or that dig deeper that I learn more about really fall into that emotional sacral authority for whatever reason. So, uh, while I'm
Yeah,
familiar, but what resonated with me, what I think is cool is when you start to, and this is diving even deeper, but I also have a defined splenic, I have a defined ego. And when you brought up, you know, how that resonates for you, that feels true to me in those areas, albeit I'm an emotional authority, which is where I lean in primarily. But having the
yeah,
defined, other areas, centers, that resonated with me, what you shared as well.
totally. So there are two more authorities, inner authorities. And like you said, I think these are a little less common. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the facts, but I would gauge that they
Well,
are.
they just have to be if we're looking at the statistics of, if you're looking at ego and self projected are manifestors and projectors only, they just make up less of the population. So, of
That's
course,
exactly it.
yeah.
Oh, I said two. There's actually three. So the ego authority is only possible for manifestors and projectors. And this is all about willpower and energy. Do I have the willpower for this thing? Yes, no, that's for you to decide, right? And so it's really important to be very ruthless and very selfish about your energy because you're going to be best designed to make decisions based on if you have the willpower to do the thing and what your heart really, really desires. And so the next one is self projected or identity authority. This is only possible for projectors. And this is a really fascinating one. This is one that you access your truth by giving it a voice. And what that could look like is talking out your
I don't
process.
know why I'm laughing. I laugh a lot because I'm just like imagining like mirror, mirror on the wall, like
Yeah.
Snow White and
Yeah. Well, right. If you're looking at your own reflection and you have your own sounding board, but this could also look like having people that you trust around you that who will let you talk without giving you advice. because
Mm.
it's not about anyone else's advice or what they have to say or respond to you. It's simply about you having the safe and trusted people or spaces that you can hear your own voice. So you can talk out loud and process out loud and hear if it's right for you because it's your self-projected, your identity. So it's really important. And it's just like hear your own voice, hear your own process out loud, that will connect you deeper to your own identity as a decision maker. And so it's super important to ask yourself questions that you can respond to out loud and you can hear whether it's right for you. Will this decision help me, or be beneficial to my business, to my self-expression,
Mhm.
to whatever it is? And then hear your own response.
The common thread in the authority is, for me, is while very loving and right, people literally projectors, their strategy may be to inform, right?
Mhm.
Or manifestors, sorry.
That's manifestors.
Manifestors, yeah. So think about, right, how if we don't have a lens on that and a manifestor is talking with someone who's a self-projected identity authority, right? I think that's to know yourself better is to understand better. And you just, I think that's just one example I was thinking through, and you could play that out with a lot of these different authorities. But in a society, and I think relationships where the intent is always good, where people want to give a lot of advice and want to give a lot of insight to people, you can start to see how easy it is as souls and human beings' bodies to get very overwhelmed, right? If
Yeah.
you are self-projected identity authority and you're just really meant to have people to let you talk it out, think about how not in yourself you are if you're just constantly around people who are like, you should do this. Well, you should do this and you should do this. It's
Hmm.
like quieting your voice. And so I think a lot in authority, really what comes up for me is discerning who you're around when you're making decisions and, what's that best process for you. And that can evolve and
Yeah.
shift and change. But hopefully that's some ahas for people. I think my emotional authority, that was a big aha for me, right? And I told you that
Yeah.
where it's like, on the heels of people being like, oh, you need to move past those things or just get over it. I mean, quite literally, when I'm in an emotional wave, like I get it. Michelle at 12:32 on a Wednesday might not want to receive, my emotions or energies, but I have found in my emotional wave process, if I can just say the thing, literally, like Michelle will listen to the end result of multiple
Yeah.
voice notes. She's like, girl, you just already worked through that wave. And so for me, who in my community will show up to just let me process through my emotional
Hmm.
wave. And that's how knowing about your authority can really be beneficial. So those are just some
Yeah.
some ahas as we're talking through authority. What about, did you have anything else on self-projected or
Yeah. Well, I just think to what you're saying, there are, gosh, people in general, and just have a habit. Not everyone, like I don't do this, and I and I used to think there was something wrong with me for not doing this, but people tend to rush to validate whatever you're saying, and it doesn't matter for and you're saying like to all authorities, right? But that's the truth of it. Like, oh, if I say, oh, I sound like this, or I feel like I sound stupid or whatever, right? People are going to rush to be like, well, no, don't, no, you don't, or try to build me up, or vice versa, right? And I'm like, I don't need that. I just like, it's like therapy talk too. Like we don't need to rush to validate or to celebrate or change someone's perspective or tell them they're, whatever the thing is. We just need to be more curious to let people figure it out for themselves. Oh, you feel like you sound all over the place? Well, tell me more about that or why, right? Instead of being like, no, you don't, Michelle. You sound so, like we do that and we do it all in different ways or on the opposite end, like, you should get over this, Allie. You should be
yeah.
here, right? Like, that's me
Well,
projecting
we're
onto you.
apologetic for
Right,
our own.
right.
How many times when you said that, how many times people will say to me, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry, I have
Yeah, yeah,
ADHD.
yeah.
I'm not following. And you and I talk about that a lot. I think it's a gift of yours and mine that I'm like, no, I gotcha. I'm
Yeah,
following
yeah,
you. And
yeah.
even in our conversations, we'll circle back to something at 45 minutes,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Well, that's the truth. It's like we don't need necessarily like, and that's what I love about human design. It's like the more we start to understand ourselves and understand other
Mhm.
people, the more space we can let people just be themselves and do things on their own timing and in their own way versus trying to like put onto them whatever we feel in the moment. Like that's not helping anyone. And so I think it's really cool to just keep recognizing that. So the last one is the outer, which is mental authority. This is also only specific to projectors and similar to the last one, which was the self-projected. You do need to talk it out, but it's less about hearing your own voice. It's more about that you're super sensitive to spaces. So you need to be around people that make you feel good and spaces that make you feel good to be able to say out loud and process in real time. And so, environment and people, spaces are going to be really important. Your surroundings while you're making decisions. So that's unique to projectors. And okay, so we went through all of those. It took a minute, but like, I just want to say, nothing about human design is meant to feel limiting. It's not meant to restrict you, right? We talked about like, oh, okay, well, only manifestors are supposed to be starting things, so I can't do that, or only generators are supposed to be. No, that's not the case at all. Anything that makes you feel more connected to your authenticity, to your autonomy, take that and run with it and put everything else down because there is nothing about human design that should make you feel restricted in any way. And once it does, like, leave
I've
it.
heard it said it's we're all special and nobody's special. That's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth of it, right? Like, we are this tiny little speck of starlight of dust on this, like, massive, massive multiverse. And the more that we can understand, like you said, the puzzle piece thing, it's like the more we start to understand ourselves, we can start to let go of all of the expectations we have on how everyone else is supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, and just live and respect one another for your uniqueness and just let it freaking be. So, what else? I know we wanted to share some of our favorite resources. There are a ton. I mean, human design is
Mm.
only becoming more and more popular, especially over the last few years. It's just blown up, which I'm so, 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 so pleased about. But there are some resources that we go to. I mean, get a reading. I don't have anyone specific I can tell you to go get a reading from because, like I said, the person who did my reading, I don't think she offers that any longer.
But there's
But
a lot of people online,
a
and if
lot.
Sarah's ever called to start doing readings again, we'll definitely promote that. I think
Hmm.
we're so blessed because we learn a lot on our own and then we learn from each other as well. And of
Yeah.
course, I'm really blessed because when my big bang happened, Sarah said, I'm going to read your chart. I'm going to read your ex's chart. And
Yeah.
and so I'm really blessed to get a lot of insights into my chart, but it all just starts and from you and from other people we talk about. And
Yeah.
the more I hear people identify with their charts as well, that helps me learn. I talked a little bit about like I don't know anybody with those. So I'll get more interested and I'll learn that way. But yeah, it's so accessible. My Human Design app, Michelle and I are both a fan of. It's free. You can get your whole chart. It's free. If you download the app, you will not have access to just the tremendous amount of ahas and workshops and tips within there. It's pretty accessible. I mean, it's like $5.99 a month, and I'm not trying to downplay, but I think the beauty of it is they've really made it accessible for people. And if you pay that, you can also put your friends and family and your quote unquote like
Yeah.
people in there. We've
I love that app.
we've both gotten blueprints from Erin Claire Jones.
Yeah. So I say like the blueprint is like a multi-page deep dive into your human design chart. But where I will say is that Erin Claire Jones, the blueprint is incredible, but like get it if you're a person who wants to do the reading and who's going to refer
Mhm.
back to it. If you want more high level, if you want more, and Erin Claire Jones, I find that she really specifies to working in teams, working in, professional settings. That's not to limit her work because she does a lot. I mean, relationships, but like anything, find the people who are whose messaging really resonates and clicks for you. And so, like, I bought the Erin Claire Jones blueprint years ago, and I can tell you there's like 3 years where I just didn't even look at it. So it
Yeah.
comes back around. And then recently I wanted to get back into it. I love the My Human Design app. I'm off and on with it too. But I love the Day Luna podcast. You put me onto that podcast. It's two women who talk about human design, and they have so many episodes. And so, really, if you don't want to pay for anything, go listen to a podcast. There
Hmm.
are tons out there.
Tons. I think I had told you about Beauty by Design, which is Michaela McLean, which that's a new take on just she's an esthetician. And so she really
Hmm.
takes human design. It's like human design, gene keys, astrology, and embodied beauty practices from a master esthetician with an unconventional motto, beauty is
I love that.
energetic. And so you can, and I got turned on to her because I was really interested in my strongest gift. So in human design, there's a lot of gifts, and
Hmm.
my strongest gift, and she breaks down all of the gates and the gifts in
Wow.
episodes. So not only is it really interesting because she talks about it from a beauty standpoint,
Mm.
it's just another little cool niche that I would
Yeah.
highlight again. So I think that those are some that we like. Any other that we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up
There are
now?
so many
Just
people that
Google.
we follow, but honestly, like if you're really getting, in the into human design for the first time or you're coming back to it again, focus on the people that are going to give you, what resonates and also these foundational layers because there is so much crossover with astrology, with the gene keys, and it can go really deep. So I always say, like, start really simple, start with your energy type, your authority, your strategy, and just like lean into that, live that for a while, live it for a long time if you can, and just
We're
let that
still living
bayonet.
it. I think what you teach me about it 5, 6 years ago, and
Yeah.
still leaning into how energetics and authority impact and strategy.
1,000%, because knowing it is one thing, but living it is entirely different. And so before you go super deep, unless that's your thing, like if you're feeling called to like go deep into it all, then do it. There's a lot of people out there. DM us on Instagram. I mean, we'll share.
Well, that was our friend Sarah, who's a
Yeah.
projector, who learned about human design, and she is such a subject matter expert. I don't know that she would call herself that. I call her that because she knows so
Hmm.
much. But yeah, I mean, she found a niche for herself as a
Yeah.
projector in that field as well. So, but you can see for you and I, it's like we just approach it so
Mhm.
differently on how we research and how we apply it.
Yes.
But it's really nice to be in community to be able to
A
talk about it.
thousand percent. All right. Well, let's do our self-love check-in. Okay. So, what aspects of your design help you feel more connected to a sense of confidence and self-love?
I'm going to give my emotional authority a little bit of love today. I've been hating on it, but in all seriousness, there's just something about knowing you're going to ride those waves. And so even when you're in the thick of it, it's really helped me have more confidence and self-love because I believe this is who I was meant to be
Hmm.
here. This is how I was meant to be. This is how I was meant to show up. And that gives me more self-love and that gives me more confidence. I think that I've been able to free up more time energetically by really understanding how my generator ness and energy shows up and just pausing and saying, oh, that sounds really fun right now. Let me get back to you. Or,
Yeah.
people will say, how about this date? And I'm like, can I get back to you in a day or two? That has been really helpful because I'm finding myself getting in less and less situations that I'm dreading or not feeling called to go do. So that really helps build confidence and self-love. And I'll be honest, like one even little area that it helps me out with is I might have shared this in a previous podcast, but a lot of feedback I got as my career grew and I got, higher and higher and higher in teams is like, we need decisions right now, in the moment, real
Yeah.
time. And, you think about that, it's like, you actually do not want me making a decision right now. And it's oftentimes I would find myself like 24 hours later being like, oh no, we didn't think this through, or we should have thought through this, or we should have done that. And so that gives me more confidence because as I'm talking about partnering with people or, even going into consulting or, contract stuff or entertaining, going back to quote unquote corporate America, when I'm talking to hiring managers, I say, I'm strongest when I can take 24 hours to think through big decisions, right? Of course, there's little things, but that I think just overall gives more confidence because you're able to set
Yeah.
expectations. And you think, even with you and I, just understanding each other's human design has helped us work more in flow with each other. And, I know maybe it can sound like you don't trigger me that much,
Mm.
Michelle, with your things because I know that it's really on me, but it's like anytime. And another thing with generator energy is anytime you're jealous, take note of what you're jealous about, right? And part of that in just real time, like I share, like when you get shit done really quick, it really like jars, it makes me tell a lot of stories
Yeah,
about
yeah.
myself. And that's not on you,
Hmm.
right? Like those are your gifts. That's
Right.
how you're meant to show up. But the confidence and self-love comes from these conversations, like being able to say that to you. And when you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, I just actually learned about generators are meant to master
Hmm.
things. And so even just that verbiage and being able to be in community with you and work with you, I can really easily go to, it gives me more confidence. Like, yeah, she's meant to do
Yeah.
that. And I'm meant to master things. And there's going to be strength from that as well. And it's going to take me longer. So feel the frustration, move it, but you're not in yourself when you're frustrated. So move on
Mhm.
from that. And that's just like a real life example too of how knowing my energy and knowing my authority really helps even just like in our partnership and in friendship and in
Yeah.
life. So what about you? Like what aspects really do you feel are designed or like in your
Mhm.
design, do you feel most connected to, or you get a self love or confidence boost when you're really leaning into those
Mm. Well,
aspects?
I think, when I talk about what I do for a living, I think I used to have a lot of stories, at least in the last few years, that I left the beauty industry and like had this secure thing that I could say, like, oh, I do this. And it was very easy. And people could see, at least from I perceived that people could see the value very easily in it. Like, oh, that's impressive. You ran these big teams, you ran multi-million-dollar businesses, you meet with all of the top, like, that story felt really secure for a very long time. And what feels very freeing for me, what feels very builds my confidence and my ability to really accept and really love about myself and my design is knowing like one, that path ran its course and I was able to pivot. And the pivot looked very, very scary and different than anything I knew. And it came with a lot of stories of not doing enough or not being enough or being all over the place or in too many things, right? Like wanting to do all these different things and find my own way throughout them. And over the last few years, I get to just reflect back on that journey of like building confidence little by little. Every time I was in an environment where someone asked, oh, what do you do? Because, of course, like, what do we love more in this capitalist society than to just associate what you do with everything about you when we know that that is
Yeah.
just one facet of who we are? But I used to get like nervous. I would get really like my hands would start to get clammy because I'd be like, oh, great, here I have to go tell them that I'm a coach and I'm a this and I'm a this, right? And over every time um it was like every time I would say it, right? I would try on different ways of saying what I do and I would pull more of myself back into me every single time. Like I would pull my power back every single time I said it because I got more confident saying, like, oh, yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I do a little bit of different things. I'm a makeup artist and I'm also a life coach, and I do different things with life coaching. I have a podcast that expresses my coaching skills. I work with people one on one, but that's not the only thing I do, right? Like, and I think the more I settled into that, the more I got confident and really started to just love that so much about myself. And on top of that, it's like now I look at it and I'm like, oh, I see that in doing the one thing for so long, it worked because I was working with different brands. There were facets of that world that worked with my manifesting generator energy, but it wasn't stimulating enough. If I were to go and try to get a
Mhm.
job because I wanted to be like everyone else and be what I think was a definition of success for the world around me, then I would very, very quickly find out how very not stimulated and how very unsatisfied I am in those scenarios. And so it is totally empowering to me to like just know that even if I'm not fully uh actualized of this like manifesting generator, I'm so appreciative for that energy because I'm like, oh yeah, like I am charting a new path. And that's part of the man gen. Like you're here to chart a path unseen. And the more I lean into that, it's not even just like confidence and self-love, it's just exciting. And it's like, it's super magnetic because you're like, oh yeah, it's freeing. I can do these different things. I can get excited about different things and I don't need to craft an identity around it. Because the second I don't feel excited by it anymore, then great, I get to move on. And none of it needs to make sense. It just needs to feel good and feel satisfying. And
Yeah.
that just is such an awesome, like,
It's such badass energy.
it's
Yeah.
liberating. Yeah, it's so freaking liberating. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And it will be, yeah, and that will be an impact
Yeah.
for others as well. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I speak to people
Mhm.
and reference you when people are man gens because not that it's my responsibility, but knowing your path and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. I think a lot of people can resonate with that, but there's a lot of souls out there who are trying to do a
Mhm.
lot of things. And I think, when we were at the Confetti Project, I connected with a woman who had said, "Oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that." I'm like, "That's awesome." And you could kind of tell, like, she's not used to people
Yeah.
responding like that because it's like, wait, you don't have just the one thing you do that's going to set you up for success your whole life. But I think, again, as people start to lean more into human design, you will feel more at flow, you will
Yeah.
feel more at ease, and things will come easier to you. And I just really think it's cool that we have a platform we get to talk a
Yeah.
little bit more about it because I know that personally, when I talk to other man gens who don't even know about human design, I get to talk about you and just say, like, no, that's cool. Look, there
Yeah.
are other people out there doing that and leaning in this way. And I think that's about changing the narrative and allowing people to really be who they were called to be because we all have gifts.
Mhm.
They're intentional, so I believe. And we all can, I believe, we all dive, if we can all lean into our special gifts energetically, the collective will flow really at ease and at peace because we're all doing the
Yeah,
things the way we were
totally.
meant to.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this was an awesome episode. As always, I could talk about human design. We could talk about it all day, and we kind of did.
Well,
Yeah.
there's the generator. Just in case you guys are wondering, that's the generator in us. We get really lit up by
Yeah.
esoteric topics and structures and systems.
100%.
So
All right. Well, thanks for listening in this long, and we're so excited to continue the conversation in more detail about human design. And hopefully this, introduction gives you a little bit more context throughout our other episodes when we inevitably mention emotional authorities, gut responses, and all of the things. So thanks, everyone.
be well. Thanks for tuning in. If you resonate with today's conversation, connect with us on Instagram at Karmic Mirror Podcast and send us a message.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're loving Karmic Mirror, we'd appreciate a glowing review or share with someone who could benefit.
As we close, remember, life is not a one-size-fits-all approach. How are you honoring your unique path? Stay curious and always be kind to yourself. Until next time on Karmic Mirror.